Part 1. The Man on the Bench. The first scream came just after sunrise. Not the kind that sends people running, just loud enough to ripple the quiet, startle a jogger, make the barista at Cafe Langley pause mid-pour. Across the square, a man, hunched on a bench, clutched his head, eyes darting skyward, as if the clouds were enemy aircraft. His coat was too big, frayed at the sleeves. A bootlace hung from his neck like a makeshift dog tag. He rocked, muttering fragments, coordinates, names, battlefield code. Most walked faster. Some looked away. One teenager took out a phone. Officer Ryan Maddox had already been watching from his cruiser. He hated these calls. Mental health cases dumped at his feet with 0 resources and 100 rules. But policy was policy. Visible distress, public disruption, escalating instability. Check, check, and check. He stepped out of the cruiser, muttering into his radio. Got a vagrant losing it in Langley Square. Gonna move him along before the tourists show. As Maddox approached, the man's whispers grew urgent. No, no, not here, not here. Hey, Maddox said, firm but not cruel. Sir, you're not in any trouble, but I need you to calm down and stand up. The man's eyes widened. Get down, he shouted suddenly. Incoming, 30 meters. Get down. Maddox flinched as the man dove off the bench and curled into a ball, hands over his ears. Across the plaza, someone laughed, a college kid with earbuds and a bad mustache. And Maddox, already frustrated, already exhausted, made a fatal mistake. He chuckled too. All right, Rambo, that's enough theater for today. The man shook violently. His breathing was ragged, but Maddox didn't see a veteran. He saw a disruption. Let's go, he said, pulling out cuffs. You can have your breakdown somewhere else. He reached down, and the man screamed. A real scream, from somewhere deeper than voice. A sound, scraped from bone. That's when a new voice cut through the morning. Officer, step, away. Maddox turned. 2 men in suits had just entered the square. One was tall, broad-shouldered, eyes hard as steel. But it wasn't the suit or his presence that caught Maddox off guard. It was the man walking beside him. Dress blues, 4 stars. General Victor Hale. Decorated, retired, respected, and very much watching. Maddox froze. The square fell quiet. Even the pigeons seemed to pause. The man on the bench didn't know he'd just been recognized. But the world around him was about to shift forever. Part 2. Ghosts of Command. Maddox took a half step back, hand still near his cuffs, pulse flickering beneath the skin. General Hale didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Officer, that man is a decorated combat veteran. You don't get to treat him like a drunk at closing time. Maddox bristled. He was screaming, sir, scaring people. I didn't know who he was. Then maybe, Hale said, slow and cold, you should have asked before slapping metal on a man still fighting a war your generation's already forgotten. The words hit like a slap. Maddox glanced around. A few people had stopped to watch. The barista was filming now. So was the teenager from earlier. General Hale crouched beside the man, still curled on the ground, rocking gently. Charlie, he said quietly. It's Victor, Vic Hale. I'm here now. The man twitched. His eyes fluttered open, and he whispered a name like a curse. Hale. Hale nodded. Yeah, it's me. But the man didn't smile, didn't look relieved. His eyes filled, not with recognition, but rage. You left us, Charlie rasped. You left us to die. A silence fell so deep, even the pigeons stopped cooing. Maddox blinked. Sir, you know him? Hale stood slowly. His voice cracked for just a moment. This is Staff Sergeant Charles Monroe Dean. 3 tours. Bronze Star. Purple Heart. 1st Battalion. 7th Marines. My former point man. Maddox swallowed hard. Hale didn't look at him. He looked at the crowd. You all walked past him, didn't ask his name, didn't wonder what war he fought. Just another broken man in a coat too thin for winter. Charlie moaned softly, rocking harder. Hale turned back to Maddox. I'm taking custody of him. You're dismissed. Maddox looked to his radio, looked to the crowd, then stepped back, hands lowered, face blank. Hale helped Charlie sit up, gently brushing leaves off his back. The press hadn't shown up yet, but the internet had. And within minutes, that teenager's clip of a 4-star general defending a homeless vet was already hitting the front page of Twitter. But what no one saw, not yet, was the storm brewing behind Charlie's whisper. You left us to die. And Hale's face said it all. He knew exactly what Charlie meant. And the shame of it had just walked out of the past and curled up on his city's cleanest bench. Part 3. The mission that never ended. The police had backed off, but the crowd had not. They hovered, close enough to eavesdrop, far enough to pretend it wasn't eavesdropping. Phones hovered in trembling hands. Tourists paused, torn between curiosity and guilt. Charlie sat slumped against the bench now, fingers twitching like they were still pulling a trigger. Hale stood beside him, silent for a moment. Then, we need a medic. A paramedic unit arrived 5 minutes later, slow, like it wasn't urgent. But Hale's stare sped them up. Charlie didn't fight the exam. He was too far gone in his memories. Maddox lingered near the cruiser, arms crossed, face tight. One of the paramedics glanced at Hale. Does he have a history of mental illness? Hale answered, without turning. He has a history of surviving 3 deployments, losing 17 brothers, and watching his commanding officer fly out on a bird, while the rest bled out in the sand. The paramedic blinked. So, yes. Hale's jaw flexed. The medic nodded and stepped away. Maddox muttered under his breath, Why'd he blame you? Hale didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice was low. Because he's not wrong. Back then, there was a mission in Kandahar, a convoy hit by an IED chaos, conflicting orders. Hale had been pulled out to coordinate an airstrike. Charlie had stayed behind with his unit. Only 3 came home. It was a scar Hale never talked about, not at press briefings, not at the Pentagon, not at fundraisers where civilians clapped for wars they didn't understand. And now that scar was staring at him with bloodshot eyes. Charlie moaned again. They burned Vic. They screamed. I kept calling for help. You never came. The square felt colder. Hale crouched down beside him. Charlie, I know, and I live with that every damn day, but I'm here now. We're going to get you help. Charlie didn't nod, but he didn't pull away either. And that was something. The paramedics helped lift him onto the stretcher. No resistance, no panic, just exhausted compliance. A whisper ran through the crowd. Is he going to be okay? Another voice answered. He was a soldier. As if that explained everything. As if that excused what the city had let happen to him. The stretcher rolled away. Hale followed. And behind them, Jackson Square didn't feel so clean anymore. Because the war hadn't ended. Not really. It had just moved to quieter battlefields. Inside mines. Inside policies. Inside sidewalks, where heroes bled without bullets. And finally, someone had noticed. Part 4. The cost of coming home. The ER was quiet when they arrived. Charlie lay still on the stretcher, hooked to an IV, eyes scanning the ceiling like it might open up into another war zone. The nurse tried asking him basic questions. Name, birthday. He answered with ranks and call signs. Hale stood nearby, arms folded, pacing between guilt and resolve. Dr. Lillian Park entered, early 40s, no nonsense, the kind of woman who'd seen too much and kept going anyway. She glanced at Hale, then at the chart. Another John Doe with combat flashbacks? She asked flatly. Hale didn't flinch. Staff Sergeant Charles Monroe Dean, 1st Battalion, 7th Marines. He's not a John Doe. He's a damn hero. Park looked at him. And he's been living on the street how long? Hale didn't answer. She scribbled something. That's what I thought. Charlie stirred. They didn't make it. I told them to run. I should have... He gasped mid-sentence, then froze. Park leaned in. You're safe. You're at the VA wing of St. Elias. No one's shooting here. He blinked. Is it over? She paused. Not yet, but we're working on it. Outside the room, Hale paced again. Maddox had texted him twice. Something about press inquiries, internal affairs wanting a statement. He ignored it. Instead, he called an old contact, Colonel Sarah Whitman, retired, who now ran a nonprofit for homeless vets. I need a placement. Top priority. PTSD, possible schizophrenia, long-term care needed. She hesitated. There's a wait list, Vic. Bump someone. Vic. Charlie saved my life. He gets a bed. There was silence. Then, give me 24 hours. Hale hung up. He stared through the hospital window at Charlie, who was finally asleep. This wasn't about one man anymore. This was about all the ghosts Hale had seen come home and disappear. The ones who didn't make the news. The ones who didn't die in combat, but didn't survive peace either. And now, one of those ghosts had landed on his doorstep. It wasn't redemption, but it was a start. He turned to the nurse's station. I'll cover his bill. The nurse blinked. Sir, he's a veteran. Most of it will be, I don't care. He never got what he was promised. He gets it now. Back in the room, Charlie stirred. For the first time in years, someone was staying. Not for the photo op, not for the press release, but for him. Part 5. Echoes in the chamber. 3 days later, the city council chambers were packed. Not with reporters, not yet, but with concerned citizens, veterans in faded service jackets, and city officials who had seen the viral footage and felt the heat. Councilman Eric Valdez called the session to order. We're here today to discuss the matter arising from the incident in Jackson Square involving a decorated war veteran and the subsequent response from law enforcement and the public. Translation: Damage control. General Hale stood quietly at the back until his name was called. As he approached the microphone, a murmur passed through the chamber. Not everyone liked him. Not everyone trusted him. But everyone knew the clip, the one where he stood between a broken man and a badge. He didn't read from a paper. He just spoke. Charles Dean didn't fail this country. This country failed him. Silence. 3 tours, commendations most of you couldn't spell, and yet the only thing he got on his return was a park bench and a warning citation. Someone shifted in their chair. Hale continued. You've got money for fountains, for surveillance upgrades, for sidewalk cafes with gluten-free croissants. But when a man screams because he still hears mortars in his sleep, you call that a disruption. He paused. Let me be very clear. That disruption saved my life 15 years ago in Kandahar, and last week we laughed at him. Councilwoman Green tried to interject. General, the city allocates significant resources for veterans. Hale cut in. Then where was the outreach team? Where was the trauma unit? Where was a single person trained to handle battlefield flashbacks? The room went quiet again. One council member cleared his throat. What are you proposing? Hale didn't miss a beat. A specialized trauma response unit, staffed by veterans, clinicians, people who know what a trigger isn't just a weapon part, funded by reallocating 2% from non-essential tourism beautification programs. Some scoffed. Others sat up straighter. Second, Hale said, voice lowering, we renamed Jackson Square's Central Plaza after Charles Dean, not because he wanted it, but because the next time someone walks past a man screaming on a bench, I want them to remember his name. It wasn't a speech. It was a reckoning. Back row, Maddox sat in silence, eyes on the floor. He'd been suspended pending review. The badge on his desk felt heavier now. Outside, the public was shifting. Polls showed record support for veteran support reform. Clips from the hearing hit cable news within hours. The next day, Councilman Valdez filed a proposal, the Charles Dean PTSD Response Initiative. And behind the curtain of politics, something rare had happened. Not just accountability, but humanity, and it wasn't over yet. Part 6, the last march. Charlie didn't attend the council vote. He was still recovering, physically, mentally, spiritually, in a quiet veteran's home outside the city. But his name was everywhere, on the petition, on the evening news, on the lips of strangers who had never once looked his way before that day in Jackson Square. He didn't want the fame. He wanted peace. General Hale visited often. Sometimes they talked. More often they didn't. Hale would bring coffee. Charlie would stare out the window, watching squirrels. Healing had its own pace. Then, one rainy afternoon, Charlie broke the silence. "You know I meant it, right?" Hale looked up. "What?" "When I said you left us, I still feel it." Hale nodded. "I know." Charlie exhaled. "But you came back." They didn't hug. They didn't shake hands. But the weight shifted, like something broken had been acknowledged instead of avoided. Weeks later, Charlie took a walk around the facility grounds. It was a big day, first time out alone. A therapist had told him, "You're not your worst memory." He repeated that to himself, like a chant. And when he returned to the main lobby, a crowd had gathered. Hale was waiting there, in full uniform. "What's this?" Charlie asked. Hale smiled. "Thought you should see something." They drove into the city in silence. Hale wouldn't say where. They pulled up to Jackson Square. Only it wasn't called that anymore. A new sign had gone up. Charles Dean Plaza, in honor of every warrior who came home with battles still inside them. Charlie froze. A crowd stood there, press, pedestrians, and a line of fellow veterans. No speeches, no cameras in his face, just respect. Charlie stepped forward. The bench was still there, but a new plaque gleamed. "You are seen, you are heard, you are remembered." Hale handed him a small pin. Purple heart, gold trim. Charlie looked at it, then back at Hale. "You think this changes things?" he asked. Hale shrugged. "Not everything, but maybe something." Charlie sat down. For once, not because he was tired. He just wanted to be still. Across the street, Officer Maddox stood in plain clothes. He didn't approach, just gave a quiet nod. Charlie returned it. That was enough. By sundown, the clip of Charlie reading the plaque had made its way online. No shouting, no fireworks, just a man, a bench, and the silence he finally owned. And in that quiet, something powerful echoed louder than rage. Recognition. If this story moved you, if it made you feel anything, share it. Because the people we forget are often the ones who gave us the freedom to forget. And maybe, just maybe, remembering is the first step toward healing.